I'm in my last year of college. And last semester, I meet my husband and it felt so right to get married. He was getting right ready to leave for grad school. So we moved to North Carolina. It felt so right to just start our family. And I didn't think much of it until I went back to nationals about 3-4 years later and started getting the questions. Oh, Jesika, so good to see you. Tell me what you do. And I'm ashamed to say it now because I know it's not true, but I literally just shrunk.
Have you ever caught yourself apologizing for being just a mom or feeling like you have to prove your worth to the traditional workforce? So many women I know face this struggle. Even when we deeply value the work we do at home, there are times when the world makes us feel like we aren't impressive enough. But here's the truth. You are more than enough. Right now, before we dive into today's episode, I want you to stop and take this in. What you're doing matters. Raising children, shaping the next generation, being there every day. It's the most challenging, selfless, and noble work out there. If no one has said it to you yet today, let me be the first. Thank you for being a mother. Today's episode is going to be a game changer, no matter where you are on your motherhood journey. Whether you're dreaming about becoming a mom, navigating the whirlwind of young children, or enjoying the wisdom of grandmotherhood, this conversation will resonate deeply. Our guest today is going to show us what unapologetic motherhood looks like, how to own it, embrace it, and stand tall in the face of societal pressures. She's a true powerhouse, a mother of 5, a certified meditation coach, and a former winner of America's Junior Miss Scholarship Program. Oh, and here's the best part. She's also my sister. I can't wait for you to hear from her because her voice on this subject is a breath of fresh air, and her message is exactly what we all need right now. Okay, this is so fun. We have talked before about we should do a podcast or do something like this together. Funny that I'm hosting, but I love that I get to have you on here and share your wisdom with everyone.
Well, you're one of my favorite people to just talk with. So it's just another one of our talks. So I'm so grateful.
This is awesome. Okay, so tell the audience, tell everyone who's listening in a little bit about you.
Sure. I'm Jesika Harmon. I'm married to one of the most incredible guys on the planet. We have 5 kids, like you already said. My oldest is a senior and my youngest is 2nd grade. So I'm kind of on the brink of that next stage, where you have graduates and college and everything that comes after that. So it's been a little bit of preparation for my heart, I think, just having lots of big changes coming in this next year. But it's such a beautiful stage.
I love it. And you are raising 5 incredible kids. You know how much I love them and how much I admire them. And it's awesome that I get to be their aunt.
Yeah, well, you're one of their favorite aunts. So they love Aunt Lizzy.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about Junior Miss, about the competition. Was when you were a senior in high school. So you were then the age that your oldest is now.
I know.
How about that?
Is that so crazy?
Wow.
And I will share with all your audience that you actually participated too in the state program.
I did. I didn't win the national competition.
Well, and that doesn't...
But I did, and I loved it, actually. It was I met some of the most amazing girls, one I just reconnected with, which was actually so
amazing.
Fun.
Yeah. It's one of those things that I never thought I would do because it does seem kind of like a pageant. But I was just super excited to try to win some scholarship money. And for whatever reason, Dad had put in my mind that I had to pay for college myself or I couldn't go. I don't know. That wasn't true, but I had that in my mind. So I was trying to do all I could to earn scholarship money. So I think it was one of those things that I didn't expect. A good family friend came to our house one day and she's like, Jesika, you really should try this program. And my mom and I kind of looked at it and thought oh, it kind of seems like a pageant, but it could be a good experience. It could be good college prep, good practice for life, things that are coming up in my life. And so did not even expect I would end up in Mobile, Alabama with 49 other amazing girls from around the country. And I mean, my best friend to this day was South Carolina's Junior Miss. She lives in Florida now. We talk all the time. And it was just a place to meet quality girls who had the same goals and dreams that I did and did not expect to win. But have had some of the most incredible opportunities and experiences since then because of that opportunity. And it paid for all of my college. It's now actually called Distinguished Young Women. They changed the name because Junior Miss made it seem very much like a little pageant, that a little girl would do, not like this program for seniors in high school. So anyway, Distinguished Young Women is what it's called now. And it's really an incredible program.
I remember when you were kind of pitched on the idea, the local coordinator was trying to get like more awareness of the program and drum up some excitement. And I remember Dad being like, that's not
my daughter
what
does not do
Hendersons
pageants.
do.
No, totally.
Or anything close to a pageant.
Totally.
So even when you did the local one, I remember thinking like, I'm like surprised that she's getting away with it.
We kind of kept
it
hush hush. Like Mom were like, I'll just put it on the calendar. We won't say anything to Dad. She really felt like it could be a valuable thing. So she just like, let's just, borrow a dress from so-and-so. And you remember Dad had inherited some jewelry from one of his clients that passed away. So
yes,
like looked through the jewelry box.
I totally remember this.
You could wear these earrings and this necklace could work. And we just kind of threw it together and yeah.
I'm picturing Cinderella story with like the mice stringing the pearls. I'm like, it's going to work out.
Yeah, basically. It was kind of funny, but it was nice to not be so, there are people who do things like that granted it's great to prepare and to put a lot of time and effort into it, but it's not what it was. It's not one of those programs or like a pageant that you just go in just wanting to win and you do your hardest, all your work to just win. Because it's more about the experience. And my necklace at nationals, even it like broke right before I went on stage for the finals. And I felt like I had to wear this necklace. So I like tied it in the back. And so it was like a choker. It was so dumb, but it was just like, whatever. Like I'm just here to have fun. And anyway, it was amazing.
And then the year after you won, you had some incredible experiences as a freshman in college. You got to tour around the country, sing at the Senior Bowl. Remind me some of the things.
Yeah, I toured with Health South was a company that was a sponsor of the program for a while. Toured with their road show with Bo Jackson and Herschel Walker, doing some different kind of interactive games and inspirational messages with youth all around the country. They'd come to these huge arenas, and I spoke at a lot of boys and girls clubs and elementary schools. And I was a dancer. I did dance for my talent. I was a dancer, but I did dance for my talent. And so I would dance at different conventions that some of the sponsors were putting on. And anyway, just had an amazing time, but also grew so much as a person, as a woman, being able to have so much public speaking opportunity and meeting incredible, incredible people.
I think I'm speaking for myself here, but I think I can speak for you as well. We come from a really small town. It's not as small now as it was then, but it was small town, Red Rocks, incredible place with just like good core families in our lives. A big national competition and winning that and going on tour was pretty far from who we were, even though we had parents who thought bigger and both went to college and had these experiences. I remember my eyes being so opened to like what's out there and interesting people doing interesting things. I remember meeting Barbara Barrington Jones and just seeing the impact she had on girls and on women. And it's funny, I don't think I've ever even consciously had this thought till we're sitting here right now. She really impacted me to really the work that I hope to do. Like, how do you impact these girls who don't have a vision for themselves? And it's funny, I've not put that together till right now. She kind of was like, oh, wow, there's something more you can do if you have the means or the resources or the passion and just the time to say people have so much worth and intrinsic value. And it's neat how that experience shaped so much of me too.
It's amazing. And I think it's something actually my husband's been really good at pointing out as we've been trying to guide our own children to, opportunities and not who we want them to be, but you can just see within your children like what they're capable of and who they can be. And then you see some of their weaknesses or laziness or things and you're just like, but can't you see? And Robbie's been really good at, let's help our kids have some role models. Let's help put them in front of people they can look up to. Like you're one of those people to our children that try to create experiences and put them in places where they can look to people like a Barbara Barrington Jones who have done not just impressive things, but meaningful things, that they've used their time and their money in ways that make the world a better place. And it doesn't have to be on a national scale. It can be right in your neighborhood, but just love that thought of not just trying to motivate and encourage, but trying to inspire and give vision to our children. And even for ourselves, I think it's so much more motivating.
I love that takeaway. I also love the fact that it takes pressure off us as parents. It's not about just everything in our own minds that we can teach and have experiences. Connect them with amazing people.
Yep.
And adults want to do that.
Yeah.
Like we want to have impact.
Yeah.
We want to help, but you don't really know how to reach out to someone else's kid. So reach out to someone that inspires you and say, could my daughter take you to lunch? Or could they come work alongside you? Or could they come just help do yard work while you do yard work so that they can just be with you for a minute? And doesn't have to be all that the parents know themselves.
Yeah.
That's helpful. That's a helpful tip.
What's so cool about it is, and this makes me laugh because just this week, Bree, my oldest, said something to me that it might have been you or maybe mom or someone had said to her. And I looked at her and I was like, I have literally been telling you that how many times? But it was like this revelation to her that coming from other people is often more powerful than just coming from mom and dad. So having those like-minded people that we know or we aspire to, getting them around our children, such a good idea. I want to do that better.
And being okay, like being confident as an aunt or as a grandparent to say, what can I offer to the people in my life so that they can just come be with me?
Yes.
Do you want to come cook or do you want to come work alongside me? Like create opportunities. So if someone wants to walk through that door, they can.
And I think that's I'm just thinking like that's such a powerful thing for a woman to recognize. I think especially for women who don't have their own children yet or aren't going to have their own children. Like I think so often you dismiss yourself if you're in circles of motherhood and you don't have kids or whatever. Like you can have just as much, even more of an impact sometimes on a niece or a nephew or a grandchild or a neighbor. I mean, we had a sweet friend just pass away that was a neighbor to us. That is when I got the text that had said she passed away, like the first thing that came to mind was I felt so loved by her. I felt so loved by her. And she was the next door neighbor that, had us over a few times, taught us clogging. But Joyce McGregor was someone that I felt so loved and seen by, which is amazing.
Yep. And we didn't have a lot in common. We didn't have a lot of reasons for our circles to cross, except that we were right next door. I love that. Okay. So tell me now, you won Junior Miss. The next year after you toured, you did all these amazing things that impacted our family, impacted you.
Yep.
Fast forward now to the conversation we had recently that really has impacted me a lot. You've gone back and been a judge. You've remained an integral part, I would say, or a part of Distinguished Young Women. How has that journey been for you as you've maybe compared yourself to other winners or the roles that they've played? What's that journey been like for you?
So it's actually interesting because if we rewind like way before, like you and I were teenagers at home, we're very different as far as our our weaknesses, our strengths, our like even body types growing up. Like there were things that were very different for us and a lot of things that we really were so close on and some things that we let kind of get in the way of our relationship. And one thing that I remember so distinctly is you talking about you're going to have 12 kids and you're going to make
13.
homemade bread. Oh, 13.
My basketball number.
13.
I didn't get it right.
You're going to have 13 kids, make homemade bread, maybe homeschool. I mean, just all these things that you would talk about. And for me, I just had it in my mind like, Lizzy holds babies, they calm down. I hold babies, they cry. Lizzy sees animals, she loves them, they love her. I don't, animals don't really like I just had these things in my mind that like, yes, that's the perfect future for Liz. Mine, I can maybe see, Junior Miss happened. Oh, maybe law school, touring with a dance company. Like I just, I knew I would probably have motherhood in there somewhere, but it wasn't on my mind like it was for you. And I just think it's so amazing, like watching our paths, like what happened with you through college and when you got married and going to law school and this and that and me and having kids right away, got married a little bit later, but just started right down the family path, felt like I should stay home with my kids, felt like I should homeschool at a certain point, like just different things that I feel like it's so beautiful when you trust the path in front of you to help the things that need to be developed within your character be shaped and developed. And I spent a lot of years, per your question, going back to nationals in Mobile, Alabama as a judge or a host, several years. And every year you run into the same people that you love and they're asking you what you're doing. And, for the first few years, I'm in college and I'm doing this and it's not that big of a deal. And I left and served a mission for my church and I came back and they asked me to host again. And at that point, it was kind of like, okay, I'm finishing college. have a little bit left, but I started noticing all the other national winners and what other people were doing. And she's a lawyer and she's a doctor and she's a dermatologist and she's a news anchor. And so it was like, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Started studying for the LSAT. I'm in my last year of college. And last semester, I meet my husband and felt so right to get married. He was getting right ready to leave for grad school. So we moved to North Carolina. It felt so right to just start our family. And I didn't think much of it until I went back to nationals about 3-4 years later. And I was pregnant at the time with, I think, my second child and started getting the questions. Oh, Jesika, so good to see you. Tell me what you do. And I'm ashamed to say it now because I know it's not true, but I literally just shrunk. I'm pregnant with my second. I don't even know what I said, but it was like I didn't know what to say. I wasn't working. There were things I was doing. I actually had started a local Distinguished Young Women program in my area. I was teaching, on the side, just an evening a week, teaching aerobics to underprivileged women. There were things I was doing, but because I wasn't doing this or this or this, like she was, I totally shrank. And there were several years of that. Going back, and I love to go back. Like I said, there's so many people I love there. But our conversation that was so beautiful of an experience for me was going back this summer as a judge. And I recognized, and I had become very aware of those feelings every other year I had gone back. And I haven't been back for quite a few years. I served as the state director for Arizona when we lived there for several years. And I've been involved in the program in different ways, but I hadn't been back to nationals. And so I prepared myself mentally. I knew the feelings that would come. And I've done things since, but it was almost like, even though I am working in this capacity, or I have done that, or I have done this, really my favorite job right now is being a wife and a mother. That brings me the most joy and the most fulfillment. And it's where I see my impact going the farthest with my children, with their friends, with my community. And so I practiced mentally what I was going to say when someone asked this question or that question or said this, because I knew through a series of events these last several years, I know who I am and I know what my purpose is. And it was such a beautiful thing to be there and be able to not be ashamed or apologetic and to just be so grateful and proud that I have 5 beautiful children and I've learned a lot with motherhood and I'm doing this and this and this. And do you know what the coolest part was? That there were women that I reconnected with that I hadn't seen in a long time who in my bio, like they announce the judges, each night there's 3 nights of competition. And so they read the little bio. And I felt really prompted to put that in my bio that Jesika is she was a national winner and she's a meditation coach and whatever the stuff I've done. But her favorite role is that of wife and mother. And then talked a little bit about that. I had several women come up to me and say, Jesika, I've been working in New York and I love my work, but I really want a family and I really want that stage in life. Can you pray for me? Or, Jesika, would say these similar things. Or one of them brought all of her children. She actually has 4 beautiful girls and she goes to nationals every year with her daughters. And she came up to me and just it was like we had this instant connection that she was just like, yes, someone who sees the value in this. And it was just really inspiring.
Oh man, I love so much about this story and that experience. And I think there's so much we could take away from that. But one of the things that hit me the most that I wanted to share on this show is that we have power to change the narrative. I think part of the reason we feel embarrassed to say it that way is because so many of us feel this pressure. And there's not enough people that say, oh, for my career, I'm actually raising 4 children. We don't have language around it. And so it's always a little faltering and a little bit insecure. And like you said, shrinking. And there's no light being projected for anyone else to grasp onto and to catch and to say, if I do have questions about that, or if I've considered being a mom, or how is that, what even about that is interesting and why has it interested you? So I think we collectively as womankind have a power to change the narrative. Each of us, how we talk about it, each of us, how we share the stories of being moms and even talk about it as a career that we've chosen, that didn't just happen to us, that we've chosen to use our time in certain years of our lives to do. And even when we're older, that we've chosen to be grandmothers, and how we see our role as aunts or whatever it is, like we can control that narrative. And I think we should.
And I think the biggest part of that too is like the work and effort you've put into it. If you're just living on survival mode, you're not going to get much joy and fulfillment out of it. But the word homemaker has become so beautiful to my mind, because when my kids walk through the door from school and I have a candle burning and I have soft music on and I have, a healthy snack set out on the counter. This doesn't happen every day, but when it does.
Mom goals. I'm writing out, I'm taking notes of all of these things.
Right. Like there's a feeling like they can feel it. And when I decided that I want my home to be the safe place from the storms, like I want their friends to come over and want to talk with me around the counter. And I want the people who come in my home to feel a certain thing. And so holidays are different. I'm more intentional about what are we doing? Not just the stuff that's on our agenda and the things we have to do for school and this and that. Like, no, what am I creating? What am I doing? And it doesn't happen perfectly all the time, but when you've put that little bit of intentionality and work into it, you see the benefits.
I love that flip. Oftentimes when I'm most stressed as a mom is when I'm thinking about how I've made my home for everybody else. If you think about it as a business, my target audience as a mom is not anyone else who walks through my door. It's not to impress them. It's not so my house smells good for them. But when I'm the most stressed and anxious about my role as a mom, it's because I'm thinking of everybody else but my own children and my own husband. But your concept of homemaking, who am I making it for? My target audience is the kids who walk through. It also brings to mind a World War II movie, Life is Beautiful. Do you remember this one?
Yes. Subtitles, but
yes,
you wouldn't even know. It's so beautiful.
Yes. That was maybe the movie that engrossed me the most of my entire life. I was so captivated by one thing. And it was that this little boy, he's in a concentration camp with his family, and somehow they homemade. It was a homemaking experience in the middle of a concentration camp.
He didn't even realize he was in the concentration camp.
He didn't get it.
Yeah.
He didn't get what was happening because the parents, and mostly the dad, created this game, and the funny things are happening, and he protected his son. And I love what you said, like we are creating a whole environment, and it doesn't have to be a big, beautiful home. You don't even have to have a candle. Like that light and warmth that you could emanate at Distinguished Young Women or in your home or in any place you're in that shares the light and the warmth, I feel, from God for your children. Again, like there's no holier role. There's no better career. There's no greater impact for good than that right there for those children right there. So thinking of preparing your home, I want to also switch now a little. I want to switch gears and think about preparing your mind and the work that you did to get ready for Junior Miss. But I've seen this as I've been around you the last few years, like your demeanor, your thoughts, there's like this steady chipping away almost of like the things you don't want to be and the things you don't want to think. Not that I could call out any of those things, but I can feel you're like very intentionally cultivating yourself like a garden, like no thank you to these, and I'm planting these. Could you share with us a couple practices? I know you're a meditation coach. I know you do a lot of these practices probably at a deep level and maybe more than a lot of us are ready for, but are there a few things you could teach for a woman who's saying, I want to feel that way, but I don't actually feel that way. I don't feel confident, or I don't even know if I really wanted to have the kids I had.
Yeah.
That happens.
Yeah.
I went along the cultural path and like, I'm not sure how I feel about this, but I want to love any path I've chosen, really. It doesn't even have to be motherhood. What's the advice you'd give or practices you would encourage other people to adopt? Yeah. What advice do you have?
Yeah. Well, I love your example of a garden, because an example I use all the time is what you water grows. If you see like a vacant lot somewhere, what is it usually covered by? Weeds. Who planted those weeds? Nobody. We often think of our mind, the negative thoughts that come automatically, like sometimes we beat ourselves up for them, but sometimes they just come. We want to do better at this, so we think self-criticism is going to help, or we want to better that, and so we think, just wishing we had something better would help, or complaining about that, or like there's just negative things that just come naturally. But what I have loved learning, probably my biggest aha moment during my certification of becoming a mindfulness instructor, was realizing and experiencing how true neuroplasticity is, that we can change our brains. that if there's a certain thought that keeps coming, you can choose a different thought to replace that. And with enough practice, that is the natural thought that comes. It's something that you can only experience if you try. And it does take a little bit of effort. You've got to practice that mantra or that affirmation, but it is so, so worth it. There's like so many examples that come to mind, but I think the beautiful thing about it is you can find affirmations or mantras everywhere. They're in songs, they're on bumper stickers, they're in the scriptures, they're in good books. They're, the quotes that go floating around. They're those phrases that you read or you hear and you're like, that is so true. It just rings true in your heart because I believe because it's an eternal principle. It's something that is true, that if we knew all the science behind it, it could back it up. The most recent example that comes to mind is I've been in a little different position the last 9 months or so, going to work for my husband. Just a few needs in his company that I felt like I could fill. And so back in December, started working and thought it was going to be just kind of a 6-month thing because I wasn't going to work in the summer when my kids were home. But there were some things that I kind of had to keep doing. And they, anyway, it just turned into a different summer than I thought. And I found myself feeling like I was treading water. I didn't feel like I was drowning. I had enough tools that I practiced regularly that I felt like I was okay. I was on top of things, but there was just something eating at me that it was like, I don't want to feel like I'm just treading water. Like I'm just surviving. Yeah, I'm doing this okay. And I'm doing this okay. But I wanted to feel like, no, I can do the things that are before me. I know I'm capable and know that this is right. So I love doing the Peloton workouts. I was doing a Peloton run. And the very beginning, he had an affirmation that he said, yell it out loud, whatever. And I'm outside running. And
Tell me you're yelling it out
maybe I'm not going to yell it, but in the car by myself, I can yell it. But he just had you repeat several times, I am built for this. And it took me back to when I was delivering my third child and I wanted to have a natural birth. I had to be induced with my first. And, I've had many different, if you want to talk birth stories, I've had them all, C-section, induction, natural, whatever. But I remember a phrase that a nurse that was helping me as I'm trying to deliver this baby naturally because I really wanted to. And she said to me, your body was made to do this. And I just kept repeating that to myself over and over. My body was made to do this. I have certain physical parts of my body that were made to deliver a baby. I just need to believe that. And I repeated it over and over. And it was one of the most beautiful birthing experiences I had. And so when he said, I am built for this, it like ignited this fire within me. That phrase might not mean much to you, but that's the power of affirmations and mantras, is finding a phrase that speaks to you. Affirmations are the I am statements. Mantras are the things like, there's plenty of time for all that is needful, or all things work together for my good, or those type of things that help you remember something that's true when you start to get anxious or freak out about other things not happening. But those mantras just allow you to choose your thoughts in those moments when anxiety and fear can take over. And it's just been so beautiful to watch as I've experienced with many other affirmations and mantras, just the change in my physical feelings, that when there's a task at hand or, the time I thought I had for something is a little shorter rather than like, oh, am I going to get all done? It's just like, I am built for this. I am built for this. We're going to figure it out. And just the clarity, the mental clarity and the physical calm that comes when you are in control of your mind is life-changing.
I love the practicality of what you said as well. Like when I've thought about, okay, affirmations, or I have mantras and I'm like trying to come up with them in my life, I haven't thought about just thinking, what's something that fired me up recently? I don't know why I always feel like I have to sit down at like a prescribed time when I have a minute and then write something profound. But pay attention to the things around you that are speaking to you that could be God. Might just be a coincidence, but I don't really believe in those. Yeah. Like it may be a bumper sticker that's like, wow, that is the thing. Why don't I hold on to that for a couple weeks, as long as it serves me? Again, that's the thing I've done is I've like set a certain time. I need to hold on to this affirmation for so long. And it's like, why don't I be a little looser with it? Pay attention to what's speaking to me and then use that as a recitation to change something in my mind that I don't love what's there currently.
And what I love about it is, for me, I've come up with the cadence of how long it takes before it's just a natural thought. And it's usually about a month and a half for me.
Okay.
That I've got to practice it every day. And I just say it 3 times a day.
Do you have times you say it? Do you have like a prescribed time?
Usually it works best for me with my morning routine, just because that's when I already am doing like meditation and prayer and like a scripture study or whatever. But just to like 3 times with my breath, on my inhale, on my exhale. One that I practiced for a long time was, I am a kind and gentle mother. Because patience has not been one of my strong
to work on that or something.
And it was probably like 4 or 5 years ago, but I would just like, I am a kind and gentle mother. Just with my breath. I just say it 3 times. That takes less than 20 seconds, really. Like, it's so quick. But just to practice it once a day, I have friends and clients who have set alarms on their phone. So when that little alarm goes off, they just say it 3 times. And it's about 6 weeks that then I start to notice that in those moments when I'm about to like get frustrated or react to my child, or I start to like, oh, I don't have enough time. How am I going to do this? Whatever. The initial thoughts might come first, but shortly right after is I am a kind and gentle mother. I am built for this. Like, it's amazing. Our brains can literally change. And then without too much more time, that initial thought doesn't come. It's just the thought that I've practiced.
So powerful. And one of my favorite concepts my kids talk about all the time in their school is we actually call them heroes at our school. And the big corollary isn't just that you're a hero and you can do anything. It may be just as powerful to know that you are not a victim.
100%.
And I think our thoughts are the best place to practice that. But it's also the place where you feel like you have the least amount of control because it's so automatic. You have a minute before you want to punch someone. You have a minute before you want to take some rash action that's physical. But the things in your mind, the window's a lot shorter. And so you feel almost like, well, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm just a mom who yells, or I'm prone to anger, or I'm prone to having a bias towards there's nothing I can do about things.
I'm always late. I always do this. If you start to notice things your friends and family members say about themselves, it's amazing the things that we're thinking and the thoughts that we're planting without even realizing it.
You're planting seeds that you want no part of,
right?
But you're doing it yourself.
Right.
I know you and I've also talked about, it's interesting and it's hard once you hear it because then you catch yourself doing things. But when you say that to a child too, like, oh, she's just always shy, or she just doesn't like talking to adults. And then a child hears that 30 times and guess what? You've just created the best mantra.
Right up to it.
Yep. Do you have a list of favorite mantras, affirmations that you keep, that you use?
Yeah. I mean, it's not like that I keep, but I could totally recall the ones that I've practiced in the past, probably.
Would you be willing to create something that we could share with everybody listening that
Let's do
if
it.
they may not have stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We'll have that. We'll link it in the show notes and make sure that everybody has access for like a place to start. And again, I think listening to what comes to you is the most important thing. But sometimes when you're just starting, it's hard to feel and see the messages for you.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's easier to start somewhere else and get practice there. I think that would be fun.
Do you want to try finding one for you right now?
Oh, I like this. Let's do it.
I mean, is there something that you feel like,
I love this.
Something you feel like is like a challenge or an annoyance or something? It could be with a child or with something in your life right now.
This is like not vulnerable at all. I have like 50 of them I could choose if you want.
I mean, if
What's
you
the
want
one that
to.
we should choose? Something that I've noticed coming to mind. There's like probably 3 or 4 areas in my life that I just work on a lot. And because I put so much time and energy and resources into it, I'm feeling a little burnt out. Like it's never going to work.
Yeah.
I'm never going to change, or I'm never really going to get to a place where like that is second nature for me. And so it's kind of a pervasive thought, but like, maybe I just give in at this point.
Yeah.
But I believe that change can happen, but I'm like, well, then why isn't it happening if I've spent so much energy on this thing?
Yes. And
how about that?
I believe that you haven't found the right thought, the right mantra, or the right affirmation, or maybe haven't given space for God to tell you. That's one of my favorite parts about where you said, with our thoughts, it's so hard because the space is so short, like you just react to your kid or this just comes out or whatever. But when you practice meditation, when you practice space, There's a Viktor Frankl quote that talks about, and you probably know it, that between the stimulus and the response, there's a space granted. And what we choose to do in that space determines who we become, determines our freedom, determines our life. Like, it's such an amazing concept, because when you've practiced, I am a kind and gentle mother, then when my child does something that normally I would react to, or maybe I start to react to, I can say, okay, hold on, bud. Can mom just try again? And I take a deep breath and I say what I wanted to say in that moment. Like, I gave myself more space. We don't have to jump right in every time. Yeah, it might be naturally what happens, but when we've practiced space, there actually is more space, or this much space seems like this much space to
so
choose
beautiful.
something.
Did you pick a mantra for distinguishing women? Did you have an affirmation you were saying during that time?
Yeah, I did.
Can you share it?
Yeah,
I'm putting the hot seat back on too.
I know.
Do you
I was like, wait, don't change
works?
the subject. No, I did. So it came from a mantra, right? This was how many years ago? Maybe 8 years ago, when I felt like I should homeschool my kids. That came like out of the blue, like, what? I'm not a homeschool mom. Like, I've never wanted to homeschool my kids. Like, what? But there were just some things with some of my kids that I knew deep down it would help address. And so I was on a run one day and I came around the corner, and we lived down at the end of this street. And this thought just came to mind. I know who I am. I know what my purpose is. And I just started saying that in my mind as I'm just sprinting down the street, and I'm just like bawling. And it would just like,
did you yell it?
No, I didn't.
These yelling runs.
Should have yelled it.
I'm hoping for one of those.
No, but just when something resonates with your heart so strongly, like I knew that thought came from God. And like, I know who I am. I know what my purpose is. And what my purpose is sometimes changes in the sense of like, you know, right now I feel like it's this, right now I feel like it's that. But at that moment it was, you need to homeschool your kids. They need you. And this is something you need to do. And so it just like burned. And so that was the phrase that, whatever that meant for this experience being in Mobile, Alabama at that time, like, I know who I am and I know what my purpose is. I know there's more to me than motherhood, but I am so proud to be a mom. And it just really kind of brought together all those thoughts for me.
Like, I have affirmations. I've never practiced it that way. So this is like a good revelation for me. So I do want to come back to this. I'm excited to come back to this.
Okay.
And I'm going to practice, and you're going to hold me accountable too.
Okay. I love it.
All right, go ahead.
I love it. So if I understand you correctly, you're basically saying you feel like there's some like parts of yourself and your life that you work on so much. You aren't seeing very many changes. And so should you just throw in the towel and like, okay, this is never going to change? Is that right?
Yeah.
So wanting a phrase to use in those moments when you're doing the work or you feel like you're putting forth effort, but nothing is changing, that may be a good spot for a thought.
Or even if like I just have one that I'm saying to start changing that mindset. And then maybe for each of those areas, because I can see how a specific mantra could help with each of those, but just the general mindset, like change is possible, or like I'm never done, or something about hope, or something, you know, like something pervasive. Because the real struggle is just that it's a few of these areas. And, you know, I just turned 40. And if at 40, I can't change them, I mean, that's just not true. We know that. Neither of us believes that. But I can feel that thought creep in, like, you're probably just stuck in those areas. And that's okay. You have other areas you're going to keep improving on. So
can I ask, what do you believe deep down about change?
For everyone else, deep down, I believe that they can change. No, I'm just kidding. Of course I do. I believe that like change is real. And I've seen it in other areas of my life, for sure. I mean, you've experienced that with me, like things that I felt like, I even read some old journals and I was like, well, that was a different girl. That's funny, you know, but you kind of, it's like your hair growing.
Yeah.
In the process, it's so slow, you don't notice it either way.
Yep.
Yeah. So I believe change is possible. I believe.
If you think about those areas, and you don't have to talk specifically about them, but do any of them have to do with other people? And so what is it in those situations that you have control over? Because you can't change anyone else. You can't change the situation. If I want a better relationship with my sister, my mantra can't be, I'm going to have a better relationship with my sister. Like, I can only control who I am and what I do in the relationship. So is there something that comes to mind for you that you know you can control?
I can act in loving ways. I can show love. I can serve. I can change my heart towards them?
Something that helps me so much. And I have I have a whole suitcase full of specific experiences with different children of mine where something's really hard and I'm doing all I can and I think I'm saying all the right things, whatever, but they're just not changing and nothing seems to be helping. That when I can take that to my meditation, when I can take that to a place where I'm not talking. I mean, it helps to talk to people. It helps to journal it out. But to be in a place where I'm just thinking and I just have my heart open and I just ask God, what am I not seeing? What don't I understand? Or what do I need to know? And then listen to the phrase or phrases that come to your mind, because those have been the most powerful mantras and affirmations for me, because He knows exactly what you need. And the answers are within you. That's one of the things I love the most about meditation. It's not like, if I'm, a meditation coach to someone, it's not like I'm giving you all the answers. No, I know the answers are in you. You just have to be in a place where you're open enough and humble enough to receive, and then listen to the thoughts that come to mind. And I think you'll have like the exact phrase, or you'll be led to it on a bumper sticker or in a song or in scriptures or something, like I was with that. I am built for this. I think there's something very real about throwing stuff out to the universe and it comes right back to you.
So good. And I there's a quote that I'm going to butcher right now, but it's Clayton Christensen and something to the effect of, questions are the Velcro to the answers we're looking for. And when you think about it, it's never more real than in today's day and age. Like between Google and ChatGPT and social media, like every answer is already out there and exists. But until you have that Velcro piece on you that says, here's my question, now let something stick, you're not going to recognize what the answer is. So that's so powerful to me to like think about, okay, what is the question so that mantra can hit, so that affirmation can hit? And I think we move so fast in today's day and age. We don't sit and say, well, what are my questions?
Yeah.
What are my pain points? Like what am I really feeling and what do I really want to improve on? Because once I know that, something will stick. Something will be there. And I'm going to try that. And two of the four that came to mind were about other people, and I'm going to ask that. I also heard a quote I love recently that says, if we knew everyone's story, there wouldn't be a person that we wouldn't love. And so asking that, like, what part of their story am I missing?
Yeah.
Because I can't feel love yet. So what is it that I must be missing about their story?
Yeah.
And then waiting for that piece to come, which I think is powerful.
Yeah.
Love that.
And I love so much of what you said that I think is a blessing and a curse about our society right now, is that it isn't natural to have time for stillness. It doesn't just, happen that we just have some spare moments to sit and ponder. Because if you have a phone, every single spare moment can be filled. The times where you used to, walk to someone's house or be waiting in a line or be driving in the car, like you had some space to think. Not anymore. You always have on either a song or a podcast or watching something, or, that's not as built in. You have to set aside time for that. Mm-hmm. But because we do have so much around us, the chances of you receiving what you need much more easily are going to come. I can't tell you how many times I've had a friend like, oh, you should watch this speech. It's amazing. Oh, you should listen to this podcast. And within that is the exact answer I needed to a class that I was preparing for. Or, shortened, I have this on my list. And, oh, just check that off real easily. Oh, that took care of itself. Oh, that happened in a much shorter time. Like there's such beauties in the age we live in that can assist us in becoming who we want to become.
I love it. Okay, let's turn back to these moms, these women we're talking to.
I love you all, by the way. Sending you so much love.
And she means it when she says that. She's literally sending it to you right now. And I do too. And I think I love that we started with the fact that we the dreams we had as teenagers were very ironically the lives that we were going to be living, but in reverse. It's hilarious. And so we've both ironically been on both sides of it.
Yeah.
We've both been on the side that was wanting a career and called to that and excited for it. And both been on the side that's obsessed with motherhood and loves leaning into that role right now. Let's talk to the mom who's not feeling that joy. Do you have advice for that mom, or a first place that you would start? And it could be from your toolbox with meditation and stillness and mindfulness, Or this could be just advice as a mom of 5 who's been through that journey, which is powerful in your personal experience.
Yeah. For me, it's all about your network. Really, it's about the women that you surround yourself by. If you always surround yourself just with people on social media, you aren't going to have the real connections that support you when you need, that help you grow in ways you need to grow, that encourage you, that bring you dinner when you're sick, that you're not going to have that support system. And it's something that takes being intentional. Again, like sometimes you have to seek that out. We've moved a lot in our life, and what I needed in this stage was very different than what I need now. And just having a little bit of awareness, like, okay, what do I feel like I need? What do I want? And use visualization, which is a tool that I love and teach. Use some visualization to think about, write about, like, what would my ideal network of women be like? For me, when we lived in Chicago for a while, I had little kids, and even when we were in our grad school years, there were lots of women that were getting together for social reasons. They'd have a bunko night or a game night or whatever, and I went a couple of times, but it just didn't really fill my bucket. That wasn't really what I needed. I was surrounded by kids talking, playing, like all day, every day. And I just needed a little bit of quiet time, actually, to read a book or to go on a walk by myself, or play dates where the mom and I could talk and our kids could play. And when we first moved to Chicago, and I went to the park all excited to meet some new moms, and it was me and the nannies. Lots of nannies with their
Same
kids.
in Connecticut.
which that's fine. And they're lovely girls, but I had to be active about seeking out some women, the mom of one of my children's friends at preschool that he went to, or a woman that I met at church that didn't live very close, but we made it a point to get together every couple of weeks. Our kids played great. Yeah, it was a little bit of a drive, but that was what my heart needed at that time. Something for my kids, a little something for me that kind of fit into my schedule.
Okay, so first step, I love that your answer was network. That is not where I was expecting you to go. And I actually really, really love that. When you think about how am I going to love motherhood more, think about who you're surrounding yourself with. It's the same if you were in a career, not in a career. Motherhood is a career. It's the same as if you were in any other line of work and you're like, how am I going to love being a lawyer more? How am I going to love being a veterinarian more? There's whole groups of people that get together that are lawyers, that are dentists, that are veterinarians, that are...
You're reading their book, their articles, you're doing their best practices, you're collaborating on projects. Exactly.
And motherhood, ironically, especially post-social media revolution, is more isolated than it's ever been.
Yeah.
We sometimes think we don't need each other because you technically can make it work if you have to physically, but you really can't emotionally, spiritually make that work. So first, you know that it's network that's important, but then you didn't say go start calling people. You said first create in your mind what that network is at its ideal for you. And every woman's going to look different. Do they need to be intellectually stimulated outside of motherhood? Then maybe it's a book club. Do they want to feed themselves better and their kids better? It might be a cooking club. Mm-hmm. Do they need to get outside? They may go do an aerobics class. But if you don't know, and again, there's no Velcro on the question, then you say, okay, network, and then you go and try a bunch of things and it's not actually what you need. And then you think, well, I don't need a network, or network doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
So be specific. I had this thought come to me that I think I want to do a whole podcast around, that the more specific your questions to God, for me, the more specific your questions, the more specific your answer.
100%.
If you ask a really general question, how can I be happier? You'll get really general answers and probably 1,000 of them that you may even miss. But if you specifically ask, what could a network that would fulfill me as a mother look like? You'll start getting really specific answers.
I would maybe just point out the little step before that is having an awareness. Sometimes the big question is all you have for a minute. I know I want this. I don't know exactly how that looks, but to then just start observing and being aware, trying things out. Like I said, I went to a bunko club and was like, that doesn't really fill my bucket right now. Or I, hang out with this friend and you're not really aligned on what she wants and what I want. There wasn't much of a connection. Or sometimes it's having a little bit of awareness to then be able to say, okay, this is what I think I want. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to maybe write it out, and just then to take that time to create in your mind what it is you're looking for.
And then try a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Don't worry. Go try a bunch of stuff. Don't wait till you get the right answer, the one thing.
Yeah.
Okay, go try it. Go try 5
Yeah.
and see. I love that this is so applicable to every stage. We're talking in this specific example for young mothers, but there's a statistic that women reinvent themselves every 3 to 5 years. If that's the case, and it's true.
That's totally true. That's interesting.
Motherhood before your kids are at school is completely different than motherhood when your kids are in preschool, than when they're in elementary school, than like you, one ready to launch. It's almost as if your job your career has totally shifted.
Yeah.
So this is applicable often.
Yeah.
What you need in a network in the first stage is different than I even think of mom and the network she needs now, and what would fire her up and fires her up the most, and the people she's meeting. It's different. But it's the same pattern and the same process.
It is. And it's really beautiful once you start experiencing it and seeing it. My homeschooling years, my network was women who were homeschooling, or the sweet women around me that were like helping support me in different ways. My network now, I mean, since my children have been in school and we moved right before my youngest started school, and I was in a brand new place, and I'd moved enough to know that I needed a network. I needed some friends, and I didn't want to wait, because it takes time to naturally get to know someone well. And I knew exactly what I wanted. It wasn't just social, but yes, I knew there needed to be some social. I knew I wanted to be intellectually stimulated. I knew I wanted to have good, deep conversations. And I knew I wanted, every time we got together, to leave better than before. And there was a handful of women that I thought could be those people. And I sat there for a few weeks just being like, how do I do this? What do I do? I really want to get to know her better, and her better, and her better. And so I just made invitations, and I invited them all to my house. Barely any of them knew each other. And there were some who didn't accept the invitation and couldn't come or whatever. And we just started a group. And we've been meeting pretty much once a month now for 5 years. And they're some of my dearest friends that show up when I'm sick, that give me the support, and we each do it in different ways. And it's been so neat to see them become really close friends. Some of them are closer now than I am with them because they've met. And so the principle works, like you're saying, in every stage.
So good. Well, you've given us so much today to think about. What I love the most at the end of a conversation like this is when I can walk away having some really specific things that I can apply right away. And I feel less overwhelmed than when the conversation started. And you've given us quite a few of those today, and I'm going to apply them right away. So thank you. I hope you who are listening can feel the love we have for you. Whatever stage you are in motherhood, again, and that's like Jesika said, even if it's giving yourself up as a mothering role to people who you're not genetically connected to, the next door neighbors or the nieces and the nephews or women older than you. Like, we play this nurturing, mothering role as women, and it's inspiring, and the world would not be the same without women who aren't afraid to say, I'm sending the invitation, I'm showing up, I'm going to give it a go, I'm going to be the first person to look stupid to try this new thing, and it may not work out, and I'm just prototyping right now. And I hope we've given you the courage to do that in your own life and to take the first step to really leaning in and loving the stage that you're at right now. It's worth it. Joy is meant for you. We are not meant to live in a life that's sad. We're meant to live in a life of joy, and we are not the victims of whatever is happening. We could have homemaking happen in a Holocaust concentration camp. We can make it in the circumstances we're in right now. So I'm excited. Let's do this again. This was a total blast.
I would love it.
Anything you want to say at the end? And I would love you to also share where they can find more from you. There may be people who are like, I just want her as a coach, which I do. How can we find you, and any last things you want to share?
The last thing that just comes to mind, and just what you were kind of recapping and things you can take away, is I think the hardest part about a podcast or a book is that there's always so many things, and we want to implement them all right now. And I would just say to anyone listening, just pick one teeny tiny thing. Maybe it's just giving some thought to what kind of network you want. Maybe it's just, I'm going to take some time to be observant about the kind of thoughts I'm thinking, the things that I'm saying to myself. And I'm going to make a note on my phone in a month from now to make sure I've done that, to check in. Did I do that? If not, okay, I'm going to take some time today. or just one little tiny thing that you can do from this. Because if there's nothing else, the quote our dad always says, like, little by little, a little becomes a lot. So no need to try it all. It's incredible how much growth you can have in your life just by starting super, super, super small.
Love it. Okay, how can we find you?
Yeah. Jesika Harmon on Instagram. I have some guided meditations, Jesika Harmon on YouTube, and I spell my name kind of different. It's Jesika.
Okay, we'll make sure we link that in the show notes and
sure.
have a link so everybody can find you, because you just produce so much goodness, full of light all the time. So
back at you.
Thank you.
I love you. Thank you for letting me be here.
This is awesome. Thank you for joining us. It was such a treat to have my sister Jesika here with us today. If you want to help spread the word, please share this episode with someone you know who could use this message. And don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe. That helps everybody else find our show too.